We've got our own day. Is this true or not? True. True. All right, thanks for that. I want to get into some other issues now. So, the first question, other than the true and false ones, you've done some pretty amazing things. I think if you look at your laundry list of cool things Megan has done, it's pretty extraordinary. I'm curious if maybe you can talk a little bit about just how this is like, what your life is like, how this platform has changed, and how all of this has kind of added to your life and your ability to talk about issues important to you.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, light question.
Yeah, it's changed slightly. It has changed a lot, just from like a day-to-day perspective. Obviously, you know, and I think just everyone on the team, to be honest. The World Cup, different to 2015, where it was really like about the accomplishment in the sport and kind of like a sports moment in the summer. This was about so much more. So it became very apparent right when we got home from France. We went right back to New York, that it was like just had transcended sport in such an amazing way, which is really cool for us. It gives us this like vehicle to talk about all of these other issues that we had been talking about for a long time, trying to fight. It obviously boosted, you know, the lawsuit that we have with our federation, just generally the conversation around pay equity and things that we've been talking about. So that's been amazing for us, really, because sometimes it's hard. You feel like you're just like shouting and like constantly like nagging about these things, and so to have like the American public behind us and boosting our voice was very meaningful and very cool just to be a part of. And then personally, I've invested in more hats. I kind of did this to myself. The blonde hair was one thing, the pink hair is totally different thing.
People reacting to it pretty well.
I think so. It was back in the beginning, but I think overall it's a hit.
Okay. Yeah. It's pretty well.
Yeah. But overall it's been incredible. I mean, to be a part of something that, you know, transcended the sport and I think really kind of rallied and inspired and gave like a really beautiful moment during the summer is something that we'll never forget.
Yeah, it was a very special moment. So one of our core values at WorldatWork's is to be bold. And when we announced that you were going to come and hang out with us tonight, there were literally people were screaming in the office, they were running up. It was quite a moment for us. You know, we're a fairly small nonprofit association, so it's a big deal that you're here, so thanks again. But I asked the staff to send me some questions that they would like to ask. And Chris from our office, she sent a note and she's like, you know, I'd really love to know who inspires Megan, and more specifically, has she looked up to anybody around these issues of equality that, you know, outside of the soccer team perhaps, that may have inspired you to do this work?
Oh, good question. I am very inspired by my team every day. I think that we're in a really unique and very lucky position that we're around 23 other elite women, and we sort of grew up that way. So I think almost our life perspective is a little skewed. I think especially as a female who is elite in her job, a lot of times wherever you are, you're one of a few or the only one. So we've been able to grow up and sort of shape ourselves in that environment, which I think has just given us a tremendous amount of confidence, and we've inspired each other. So the team, first and foremost, for sure. I mean, just in general, like we were talking backstage, I mean, Greta, like climate activist, amazing. Like, that's just, I was not doing anything like that in 2016, that is for sure. Colin Kaepernick recently has inspired me very much. You know, going back to my childhood, I had an interview the other day, and they were saying what were your LGBTQ icons or, you know, sort of role models growing up. I don't really feel like I had any, but there was Ellen. So, you know, someone like that was like, not really in my you know, realm or sports, but someone that I looked up to. And my parents, of course, those are the like, my parents and my family, the people that I really looked up to. We don't always see eye to eye on everything, but I feel like I'm a chip off the old block.
So we've watched you and your teammates, I think, have a good voice and raise conversations up to levels at a global level, which we're very excited about you all and your University of Portland. They're inspiring a generation of young little girls, and I think even boys as well. And I was intrigued by her comment. Do you think that's a part of the solution that we're after, is when we have more people speaking on pay equity than just the people that are impacted? In this case, it's maybe men and women.
Yeah, I think that would be so much more helpful if everybody was as pissed off about equal pay as we were. I said that in my speech at the FIFA Awards about a number of different issues, but if all of the players were outraged about the racism happening in European leagues and at home as well, and if all the players were upset and talking about equal pay, not just the female players or whatever discrimination form it might take, if everybody was upset about it, then it would just be fixed so much faster. Think about like an extreme case, okay, the climate or something. Like if everyone just stopped driving cars right now, like something drastic would have to happen, like the automakers would have to go electric or whatever. So like the power of everyone, uniting together against the few people that pull the strings, I think is incredibly powerful.
So we do a lot of work in Pay Equity at Work, but it's one aspect, I think, of the larger good that we're after. During an interview with Rachel Maddow, you were asked what kind of impact you specifically wanted to have and what were your next steps. You said that you wanted to, and I quote, bring the issue out of just sports into something way bigger. I was curious, what is the way bigger? What's the next two things that you want to achieve or that you're after kind of in the platform here?
I think what I meant was to inspire people beyond sports and absent of the story of just sports or our team. And I think I did that like 1.5 days after I got back, and I think I've realized now like we really are doing that as a team. I think that now, not only for us has the World Cup been kind of the vehicle to talk about these things, but I think for other people as well. Sometimes it's a weird or awkward conversation, or you don't really know how to get it started, but I think anyone can bring up the women's national team and then launch into a pay equity talk. So inspiring people maybe to use our story, but really empowering them to tell their own story in whatever workplace they're in or with their community or people that they work with, I think is kind of an unintended consequence that we've seen that's really kind of amazing. And giving people sort of authority and inspiration to talk about these things that matter.
Because it's a pretty cool story playing out. I mean, I know it's difficult to go through, but it's got a lot of lessons, I think. And they did a great job. I think your team did a great job putting together a data set that was really hard to argue with. I think that's a piece of what we have to do in Pay Equity. In each of your organizations, is really put together a data set that's meaningful for either your CEO, C-suite, or whatever. Okay, so we're going to deviate real quick here. So President Jimmy Carter recently said, electing women to public office is the best thing to do to improve a nation's overall economic, social, and probably even political status. And then, pretty recently, a public policy poll indicated that you, Megan, have a slight advantage with voters if you were to be on the ballot for president. Speculations you could take it. So that would feel pretty good. But what I took from that was that, and I'm not sure if you're planning or on, but I'm available as a VP if you want to talk later. I would happily serve under your leadership. But I do think it means actually that there's a lot of support for the things that you're talking about. That's why I'm so excited about that particular piece. So any thoughts on this whole thing?
I think that was speaking of what I was just saying. Like, it's not like all of society is pulling the strings. It's like there's a few people in power that are keeping these laws in place, or there's if you have big pay inequities at certain companies, like usually it's the person who's doling out the salaries. But if everybody would band together and sort of rise up together and just not accept that and demand change in an organized way, then they're sort of forced to change. And I think those polls prove that. People want something more and are ready for something more. We don't always know how to go about it, and sometimes it seems daunting and totally overwhelming, especially in this political climate. It's like wild, like how do you even focus on anything? And I think that's something that's hard for people, and I think maybe this summer was like a little breakthrough in that. It's like, okay, we can use this to talk about it, and we can use this to talk about a number of things that we care about and sort of help keep focus there. But I think people just in general want it, not just women, like everybody. It affects everybody, and I think everybody's ready to take the next step.
I like it. I'll put a fist bump on that.
Yeah.
All right. So how about a big, huge thank you for that. Continuing our fight as well on Pay Equity and equality around the globe, and we'll ideally like to raise everyone's ability to live a great life. That's kind of what we're all about. So I'm going to turn it over to see, do any of you have a question that you would like to throw up here? So anything that you would, yeah, just in the HR, Harvard Business Review.
It's going to be hard to stick around for that.
I know, no. A little bit of time. So that's my question though. Is there anything that you'd like us to think about maybe to speed this up? I think it's something that we're all kind of after and hoping will happen sooner rather than later.
Gosh. I mean, we get asked this a lot in terms of sport, like what needs to happen or how can we help or what do we tell people? I mean, it's obvious that like an over-investment in women needs to happen at every level. So whether that's training or in colleges or when you get into a company, whether it's sports or whatever, like if you just, even if, you know, we started right now paying the same or investing the same, the gap will just never close. So thinking about it from that perspective, how do we, you know, boost and over-invest and, you know, really just like believe in and, you know, put your money where your mouth is, believe in women and, you know, invest in people as much as you can.
So part of what I think will help is if we really understand the impact that pay disparities have on people of color or women, anybody, any personal attitudes can use. So what's it like, we are kind of on a global stage, but you also have a personal impact on seeing male counterparts make different sets of monies than you guys. What does it feel like even at your level? So I think the more we understand what that feels like if you're impacted, it's a different feeling than if you're not. So any thoughts on kind of what it feels like for you in this whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, it pisses me off. Yeah, I mean, it's very frustrating because there's not really a good answer, really, you know, especially not recently one that we've seen. So we hear a lot about, you know, get as many fans or the TV revenues or this or that, blah, blah, blah. But it's like until investment across the board is exactly the same, or we've gotten to the point where it is the same, then we can't really have that argument. So it's frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. You feel like you're banging your head against the wall most days. But also, I think we have seen a lot of change, you know, just in the course of my career, especially in the last, you know, 4 years, 3-4 years. So that is inspiring. It seems like people are, you know, catching on and, you know, caring about it more and doing more. So it is inspiring. It's incredibly frustrating and incredibly inspiring at the same time. And it just, you know, sometimes it's hard to understand or to accept that progress takes time. I don't think it needs to take as long as it's taking, but it is. So you just have to, you know, continue to do everything you can.
So I'm going to read for a moment from an article that came out in Harvard Business Review this week. So I'll give you a second break while I read this, and then it's going to lead to a question. So in her article, Shika Tu Cheyenne writes, "We are at an unprecedented time in history, where movements like the Me Too and the push for gender equality continue to gain traction around the world. The courage demonstrated by the U.S. women's soccer team's fight for equal pay is just one example of how powerful collective action can be when it comes to overturning systemic barriers and driving longer-term change. Equally, their suit has shown us that the consequences employers like the U.S. Soccer Federation face when they fail to step up against discrimination and bias. If we expect all employees to bring their best selves to work, we should take to heart the words from the U.S. Women's Team campaign, which is equal play for equal pay." So my question, Megan, is was there some moment where you guys decided we are going to push this as far as we have to, and you guys went forward with the case? What was happening, and why did you decide to move forward on it?
Honestly, I feel like that moment happened a long time ago. I think a real turning point for us was the 2015 World Cup, and sort of immediately realizing that we were not prepared or able to capitalize and capture what was happening. Not only financially, but you know, just from a popularity standpoint, we just had no mechanism. You know, we just felt like it was such a big deal, and we weren't participating in the upside. So I feel like that was the moment where, like, as a group, sort of collectively, we're like, okay, we need to be more organized and put ourselves in a position to be able to fight this fight, which takes a lot of persistence and work and you know, strategy on all parts from the team. And then with the lawsuit in particular, I I guess we filed earlier this year. It was sort of just the next best, strongest step that we could take. We tried to go through the EEOC, but sort of felt like with the administration change, like things just hit a bit of a roadblock for whatever reasons. So we had kind of run our course with that process, and so just felt like the lawsuit was the next best step. And I think along the way, us becoming more organized, becoming more educated, and really uniting together is like that constant piece of confidence that we all take. And you know, before that, I feel like we weren't as organized, and we were, you know, sometimes we were in it, sometimes we weren't, and it's hard to get. I mean, there's 23 players, and there's more players in the class action, and it's difficult to get everyone together and keep everyone educated. But I feel like the more that we've done that, we're seeing the results, and so that kind of gives us confidence every step of the way.
On a little bit lighter note, so following the U.S. win over the Netherlands, the crowd was chanting equal pay, equal pay. Just curious what it was like to hear that from the crowds and what it meant to you.
It actually, I mean, was quite an incredible moment too. I mean, I guess we should have realized then that we totally transcended sport. But, you know, for everyone to obviously be here, be, you know, fans of the sport, and there was an incredible game happening, the World Cup was incredible. For sort of a collective conscience to express itself all at once in that way, behind sort of the fight of the team was really just incredible. I would assume it'd be like, you know, being in a huge march or protest or something like that. And to know that it was like, obviously all of the world governing bodies were there, and FIFA was there, and the president, and, you know, president of France, and it was just like, they had to be there in that moment, and the crowd spoke very clearly about how they felt.
It was a cool moment to listen to.
And just to know that it wasn't, it's not like people were just, you know, chanting for us, like, you get equal pay. It was like, everyone was chanting for themselves and for each other, and that sort of inspiring moment of like, we would like this to happen. We don't accept that this is going to continue to be the way it is.
Okay. So another question came from our staff member, Brett. He sent in, U.S. Men's National Soccer Team Players Association put out a statement in support of the women's national team's pursuit of equal pay, with some harsh words to the U.S. Soccer Federation in the process. Given that tooth of pay gap you measured against, what did that mean for the team at the time that happened?
I mean, that was very important. I think, you know, having the two teams aligned, I've always said, and I have always felt like, is the strongest position we can both take. At the end of the day, we're both the labor force. We're the one labor force. So I think that a fractured relationship is probably what the employer would want. But, and I've said this for a long time too, they probably deserve to make more money too if they're underpaying us. I don't believe it's just purely a sexist issue. They're probably underpaying them as well. Obviously, the Federation makes a lot of money, and a lot of it is, you know, because the players are out there putting on a great product, and soccer is growing the way it is in the U.S., which is amazing. So that meant a lot coming from them, knowing obviously that they get dragged a little bit whenever it comes to equal pay and it comes to talking about both teams together. But I think a more united front that we can have, the better for both teams.
And you guys get your questions ready, because we are going to turn this over to you in a few minutes. So get those ready.